How to deal with having bad parents. I cannot recall any point in my life after age 4 where I felt any love or affection toward my parents. This is not to say they're particularly bad people, just bad decision makers and communicators. I truly think that both of them believe wholeheartedly that they've done a fine job of raising me, keeping only my best interest in mind. And they have, as far as having food and shelter go. But they seldom know what is best for me, let alone themselves. My parents have been separated since I was about 6 months old, so I have no memories of them together, and few pleasant memories of either in general. I have a stepfather whom I also loathe. There has always been a certain misery to my parents, probably the outcome of having a child too early in life and never getting the opportunity to chase their dreams. One of the most infuriating aspects of my childhood was going from one household to another only to have the same irrational garbage spewed at me in 2 different locations. My father, although he was the lesser of 2 evils in that aspect, would enjoy more than one strong drink every night, becoming increasingly abusive toward anyone in sight. I no longer speak to him, as I can only deal with a severe alcoholic for so long before I either need to get away completely or beat their head in. My mother, on the other hand, has always assumed she could buy my love, and that would excuse the screaming, lies, and attempts to gain complete control over my life, which goes on almost constantly. Whenever I have tried to speak with her about how irrational and immature she acts, she simply denies it all and trivializes whatever issue I may have. Or she insists that I remember an incident completely different from how it actually happened. And I recently found out all of those characteristics of a form of emotional abuse called gaslighting, which apparently I've been enduring for years. One of the best ways to deal with bad parents, although it is not necessarily the kindness, is to just lie to them about most things. Whenever it was something important or trivial, I could have avoided wasting a great deal of time and energy had I not always told my parents the truth about certain things. My abandonment of all organized religion, for instance, caused a fight between my mother and I that still rages to this very day after its start 5 years ago. Had I just played along with the Christianity nonsense, I would never have had to deal with such an unpleasant and never-ending argument. Another way to survive bad parents is to spend as little time at home or with them as possible. If your parents are bad enough that you cannot even stand to be around them, then you no doubt want to leave. Spending as little time as possible with them helps a great deal to distance yourself and make your escape easier once you are old enough to leave. It also helps to avoid quite a bit of conflict. I get invited to do things with my mother and stepfather on a fairly frequent basis, but I seldom accept. Anytime I go anywhere with them, my mother and I scream at each other, while my stepfather just sits there and tells her she's right. It is never worth it. Finally, my personal favorite way to deal with bad parents has been to archive every event in which they hurt me, angered me, etc. I sometimes wonder if I have an incredibly skewed perception of events, or if I have falsified memories, or am just generally an asshole when it comes to my parents, because I'm always told so, by them, mind you. However, later on when I am told my memories are false, or that I shouldn't be angry about being treated like a child, or some other nonsense, I have the ability to throw solid evidence in their faces and prove them wrong. The majority of the time, I'm still waved off as if I made all of it up. but it still makes me feel good to know that at least I'm not crazy or just being a difficult child. There's no surefire way to cope or deal with having bad parents. For the most part, it depends on the individual and their situation. That being said, I've seen a great deal of parents who treat their children in an incredibly similar way as I have been all my life. The extent of some people's ability to make irrational decisions never ceases to amaze and disgust me. I very much wish I had been raised differently, in a far more caring environment, as I am sure many others like me do.